Hello all, Upwork Scale here again, and I wanted to demo another one of the projects I had been working on, unsolicited, mind you, in an effort to get some extra practice on organization and things like that. So I pulled another one off of Upwork. This was from a really long time ago of somebody wanting to organize their budget, and they had this file attached to the job, and I managed to turn it from this to this. And I just want to explain a little bit of how it works and how I got to be this way. First and foremost, I did use a template. While I'm not the best at designing things and like making stuff look pretty all the time, I do like organizing things. But I needed something to make it help me understand how a budget table should look since I've never had one before. And so I just used Google's. And Google had a really nice, cool type of look to it. Cool meaning like it feels chilly when I'm looking at it. But then at the same time, it is a really nice looking budget table. And what I also really liked was on the transaction table, there wasn't a whole bunch of tabs, first off. And then second off, they had their expenses and their income on the same table, which is really cool. That's not what I had when I first started. In fact, before I got to this version, it looked wildly different. It was substantially different a while back, like not even that far, probably about here. Okay, so maybe yeah, that was like a really long time back, but um, I just had like all the different type of transaction types on the right side. There was a ton of tabs, and I was just still trying to figure out exactly where to organize things. There were a whole bunch of different colors, everything. And eventually, over time, within the last couple of days, I just started being able to reduce the amount of tabs and slowly bring it to some level of organization until eventually it arrived to this. So, color scheme is nice and good. Organization is really nice. And what I also added to the expenses or the transactions tab is a calculator that allows you to keep track of fixed and non-fixed, which is basically variable, different expenses that you have. And since this is more of a travel budget than a monthly budget, I didn't keep track of like how much you saved or anything like that, or how much you earned throughout this week or anything. I kept more in track of just this is the money that you have for your trip, this is how much money you have left after your trip, type of thing. These other two tabs are coming out of the necessity of the actual project, which is what I really want to cover. And herein, I want to talk about the discrepancies that made this kind of difficult. So, forgive me, original person, if you end up running into this, but I feel like you got some stuff wrong, and I'm going to try to make a good case about it. So, one of the things that I did in order to try to organize everything, I started by putting names on everything. What you notice around here is that there are no named ranges whatsoever. So you have no idea where anything is coming from. On mine, when you look at it, you have named ranges in a whole bunch of different places. Budget per person, budget per day. I have a planned net expense, the planned total, actual total expense, net income. In fact, if I wanted to go through like all the different name ranges, I have like a whole table of them. And this was like one major part of the issue, just organizing, putting names on everything so that I can find stuff, and then when I look at a formula, I know exactly what it is that is calculating. And in doing that is when I started finding errors in the calculation. Here's one of the biggest ones, because with this one it ruins every single calculation on the screen. Net income. And the first thing before I say that is there was a huge discrepancy in terminology used. No sort of uniform terminology. There was budget versus planned versus projected versus actual versus variable versus fixed. There was a whole bunch of different ways of saying the same thing. And while I tried to keep a lot of them, it also made it really hard, especially not having any sort of experience in working on a budget sheet, to try to make a budget sheet look nice. So that I had to weed through. And what I came down to the point was this. Budget must mean that you would want to keep track of how much you spend before you get there. And the actual is how much you spend while you're there. And you kind of want to keep those calculations separate so that you'll be able to see at the end, how accurate was I in predicting how much money I was going to lose on the trip. And because that separation was not there, and it could have possibly been because of the terminology, it really messed with a lot of the calculations. And this is one of the first ones. So, net income. This is basically after having your income taken in and all of your expenses calculated back out, how much you're left with. And as you can see, it's kind of hard to tell where anything is coming from just looking at this. But once you click in, you can see this is the total income. And this is just after everything is said and done, is put together. Now, this does not make sense. This is only 4,810. The rest of it is actually coming from this gross income, and which is what giving you the rest of the money. Okay. The next part, L, is supposed to be your actual expenses. So after you calculate all of this, you get that. Then the blue stuff is supposed to be your flight expenses, how much it took for you to get there, and to get back. And then the other one was your entertainment expenses. At least that's what I'm calling it. I don't know what a gov ball is. I guess a government ball. I don't know. And the Broadway is you going to see a really expensive show. And then lastly, groceries. Now, just in case you believe I got something wrong, I'm just going to set your mind at ease. I did. But first, let's explain this. So, let's first start with the income. Because it's income, expenses, flight, entertainment. Income, expenses, flight, entertainment, and then groceries. Let's first start with that. In mine, this is my net income. First, I got income, expenses, flight, entertainment, groceries. Now, the total expenses, if you notice, is coming from here. The total income is on a different sheet, but I will show that to you. The flight is coming from here. There it is. The entertainment is coming from here, which not technically here, but I do have it on another table. Oh, no, here it is. No, it's right here. And then groceries, which is here. Okay. Now, let's explain that income. Income, I put an income calculator because one of the things I noticed is that he had a whole lot of formulas kind of baked into the sheet. And so that actually made it kind of difficult to organize it because I kind of figured you would want to have that kind of extrapolated out so that you're looking at the 72 and you're not thinking, where is this coming from? Or you're seeing this bonus of $800, but I gave you $1,500. Where is that coming from? That kind of thing. So I edited in the extra stuff so that you can see the calculations. Here, you get your gross bonus, you see the reduction, and then you get the amount, and then that gets calculated over here. You see that. And what you see here as total income, as by the name range, is $13,912. And as you see over here, $13,912. Next one, budget. And this one is the crazy one. Here, you end up totaling out to this amount. Just in case you think I'm lying, this is all being summed together to be brought down to here, about $7,397. On mine, you'll see that here, $7,458. Now, yes, that is a bit of a difference, but by about $90. So, not enough to say, oh yeah, well your stuff is just completely wrong. It's a little, well, no, not 90, probably around like, what is that? $390, about $60 actually. So not enough for you to be saying, oh wow, that's just terrible, you suck at math. No, not entirely, because here's the thing. Theirs is coming from the calculations of all of this. Rent, utilities, laundry, transportation, house, and then clothes. Utilities was a whole bunch of stuff cobbled together. 72 plus 100 times 2, 72, then this thing, and then the 72 plus 90. So what I was imagining it is I just gave it some fake names because he didn't have any actual names attached to it. I imagine if you're going to be living somewhere, you're not really going to be paying for a whole lot of stuff. So I just said electricity, phone, let that be it. And so I put it here, 72, 190. The times 2 was from the number of people, which that ends up being included here. And then that 7 over 30 is this thing, which I just called insurance because I'm not sure what it is. and or maybe it's tax, I don't know. And so that teetotal to this. Now here's the interesting part. That's not the right calculation. And I can't tell you why it's wrong. I have no idea why it's wrong. But it's not the calculation that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to have like 524 times 0.23, and then that's plus 524. Well, no, actually that's correct. Okay, so I'm not entirely sure what they're doing wrong. So look, I got the right thing by doing something. But what's weird is that I do the exact same thing over here, and it doesn't give me the same thing. And I couldn't tell you. I don't know what's going on. These should work exactly the same, but they get different values. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know. I did everything I was supposed to, though. Couldn't tell you. But 646. That's the first discrepancy, or I guess the second discrepancy, if you want to call it that. And that gives it. But still, $40, or what is that? Like $80, 660. Let's see. Like $60, $80. No. Let me actually do math. $60. Still not enough. So like maybe $100 off. Okay, about $100 off. Still doesn't get you to exactly why this is just so jacked up. Okay, here's the next part. Because I have to account for $800 being gone, or $600 being gone, and it makes no sense. Only I found 100. So now there's laundry, 36, laundry, 36, transportation, 450, transportation, 450, house supplies and this, so it's about $296. Same thing here, and then that ends up being this, $4,296 as their net income, which is this minus, or this minus this, and that gives you that. I do the same thing where I take the total income minus all that other junk, and that gives me this. So exactly what's wrong? Well, here's one of the biggest ones. You remember when I was telling you that there was a discrepancy between budget, actual, fixed, variable, projected, and all that other stuff? Some stuff got mixed. And here's the first part. Groceries. Now you may notice groceries is nowhere on this sheet. Just nowhere. The reason why is because it actually isn't here. It's down here in groceries. And it's at B14. But look what it says. Projected. Budget. Projected. And I think you should immediately see what's going on. He mixed calculations. And so now, instead of having the $1,400 as part of the projected loss from your gross income, he had what he actually spent on groceries. In fact, if you switch this from B14 to B13, which was the budget, it puts you in the ballpark, $719, which is closer to what I had. I'm about $60 off. So at the end, about $260 worth of weirdness, and that's it. Including like the extra type of things going on with the full totals and stuff like that. So that was one of the biggest problems. But because of that, that caused a huge issue. This determined his budget. And his budget was determined by this divided by the number of days that he had, and he budgeted based off of that much, and then split it between him and his counterpart, and then made that his daily budget as he went down the line. So mine came out naturally to be a lot smaller, to 53, and then on my budget that governed this entire business. Now here's the next problem.